Hello, I'm Nefer Kefri, your hostess with the Ghostess, and you're watching True Tales of the Paranormal. If you enjoy this video, I ask that you drop a like, and if you really enjoy this video, please check out my other content and consider subscribing. Now on to today's True Tale of the Paranormal. This experience takes us to London, and this was my second trip to London that happened the following year in 1990 while I was studying in Bonn, Germany toward my doctorate degree. A good friend and I decided to take a side trip to London because once you get over to Europe, lo and behold, travel there, at least at that time, was so inexpensive. We flew round trip on British Airways for the equivalent of 150 American dollars from Frankfurt to London. So it was October, early October, and we decided to spend about 5 days in London. So we decided to take a couple of walking tours of London, and they do have them, and they're in small localized areas. So you can choose a particular theme, you can choose a particular neighborhood, like they had tours of the theater district, museum district, the parks. Well, they had thematic tours as well, and one of them was Jack the Ripper. So guess which themed tour my friend and I chose first? Yeah, Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper has always been such a point of fascination for many of us because he's one of the earliest, if not the first, documented serial killers. And to this day, no one is completely sure who he was. There's a lot of theories out there. I'm not here to talk about the theories. I'm here to talk about what my friend and I, plus some members of our walking tour group, experienced during a night in October in London. So there we were at night in the Whitechapel district, which is infamous for the Ripper murders. And our guide was a gentleman who was taking us from site to site to site in chronological order in which the murders occurred. So we were about halfway through the tour, and we were in a part of Whitechapel where the stonework of the road was all original. It had been laid there in like very early Victorian times. And our guide was quick to point this out to us, and it was your quintessential London cobbled stone street, of which I took a couple of pictures, of course. So we're walking along. Now remember, it's at night. It had rained earlier in the day, so the ground was damp. And also it was a little misty. So in spots, you could see some fog, low-lying fog, very atmospheric, perfect timing for our tour, right? So we're all into it, you know, except for this one lady who was there with her husband. She was scared the whole time. And she kept telling him, let's just go, let's just go. He's like, no, I don't really want to do this now. Come on, honey, let's just get through this, okay? And she'd be like, I just want to leave. Poor thing. And we felt kind of bad for her, and we tried to cheer her up and talk to her and stuff. And they were also from America like I was, and my friend was from Germany. So we're walking along, and we're going down this dark cobbled street, right? And this mist started to roll in about a block down. Okay, and it rolled across the cobbled street, and it just seemed to undulate like a really thick snake. And we all basically kind of stopped in our tracks and just kind of watched it because it was just so bizarre. It was like something out of like an old Hammer horror movie, you know, of which I am a huge fan. I'm sure many of you are as well. And I was just like, whoa, any minute now, Christopher Lee is going to come out, you know? And so we're just kind of watching this. And even Elizabeth, she just goes, whoa. I go, I know, right? Isn't that cool? Isn't that cool? And we're just all kind of watching it. And all of a sudden you could hear clippity clap of horses' hooves on the cobbled stone and carriage wheels. Now, by this time, Elizabeth and I had been walking basically in front of the group. We were right behind our guide because she had a slight hearing problem and we had to be sure to be near him so she could hear, you know. So everybody else was right behind us. Well, at that moment, when the clippity-clack started, they all caught up to us. So they were all kind of fanned out around us, and our guide was facing us. And we were going to stop here, and he was going to give a little lecture about that spot. And he just stopped. His mouth was mid-open to say something, and he just stopped. His mouth just slightly hanging open as we heard the horse's hooves. He slowly turns around, you know, and he saw the mist too, because as we were walking up, that's when the mist started to undulate across that cobblestone street. We couldn't see anything, but we could hear the horses. We could hear the carriage wheels. And Elizabeth grabbed me and she says, "What do you think that is?" And I'm like, "It can only be one thing. It's a horse-drawn carriage." But we couldn't see anything. And then our guide told us, there aren't any out this late, at least not in this particular area. You can take a horse-drawn carriage closer to the parks. Sometimes they do run a bit late if they had a busy day and they're trying to accommodate everyone. But around here, we don't do the horse-drawn carriage tours here. And we all just stood there staring at each other. And you could hear the horse's hooves clickety-clacketing on the cobblestone, moving away from us. It's like they came down the side street, entered our street, turned left, so they would have headed further away from us down the same street we were on, and they just clickety-clacked away. And we were basically left standing there, literally holding our collective breath. And then the guy cocked his head and said, "Well, that hasn't happened in quite a few months. You all are very fortunate." The woman who was afraid to start with was now really pulling on her husband's arm. And she says, "We gotta go. We gotta go. I need to be by lights. I need to be by people. Let's go to a pub." And then our guide says, "Oh, I'm about to deliver on that. If you'll give me just 5 minutes, we're all going to head to a pub that's very nearby." Okay, cool. So he gives his last story of the evening. And he says, "All right, we're going to go over to this pub. It's called the George. It's run by a good friend of mine. And we can get some drinks there." And we were like, "Oh, awesome." So we all walk on over to the pub, and it was really close. It was like maybe 2 blocks away from where we were. As we go into the pub, I all of a sudden just kind of, you know, my spidey senses went up. And I was just like, this place is haunted. This place is very haunted. As in like 3, 4, 5 ghosts, you know. And I just knew it. I could just feel it. And as you walk in, this other guy who's in the group, he kind of is rubbing his arms like this, and he had two teenage daughters with him on the tour, and they're like, "What's up, Dad?" And he says, "I don't know." He says, something's weird. The hair on my arms just stood up. And I was just like, "Oh, validation. There really is something here." Come back next week for part 2 of what happened to us in that haunted pub in London. And that is what we experienced during a walking tour in Whitechapel with the theme of Jack the Ripper in early October of 1990. I hope that you've enjoyed this paranormal experience of mine. If you have, please remember to give the video a like. If you are not already subscribed, please consider subscribing, checking out my other content. And to all of my returning subscribers, I appreciate you all so much. Thank you so much for being here, for sticking it out with me when I had health issues. Hopefully I am back now for good. And until next time, I am Nefer Kefri, your hostess with the Ghostess, wishing you a very blessed day ahead.